Hey, good afternoon, everyone. This is Renato Cruz-Gecko, VP of Digital Strategy here at BloomNet and Floriology. We have a couple minutes before the webinar starts, but I just wanted to check if you're out there and if you could hear us. Please raise your hand just to be sure that you could hear us. We do have one person out there, an ally. Oh, okay. Hey, Andy, how you doing? Quick favor. It was great seeing you yesterday, but we just want to be sure that this you could hear the broadcast. So if you could raise your hand if you could hear us. Testing, testing. Oh, we got a question. Rachel, Andy, could you hear us? Please raise your hand.
I don't know how to raise your hand, but
oh, okay.
I was like, where are they? I was like, going in every room. You're good.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Andy. Rachel. Okay, they can hear us. Try not to be disrespectful. Just wait for hopefully one more person to come on. Let's start it. Good? Sure. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for attending today's webinar, 2019 Post-Valentine's Day report. With me today is Jackie Lacey, AAF, AIFD, CFD, PFCI. Whew, that's a mouthful. But what we're going to do today is we're really, give an opportunity to go over some best practices after the holiday, and talk about some of the things that you could do as a florist to either prepare for the next Valentine's or really prepare for the next holiday. But before we do that, we just wanted to share a little bit of information about upcoming floriology classes. So Jackie, what do we have on tap for the next couple months?
Well, I just want to have a big shout out for those that attended the class that actually just finished yesterday.
Just finished yesterday, that's right.
It was a great class. We had a great group of people. We're able to share a lot of information. Sharon McGuckin, AAF, AIFD, PFCI, was here with us and helping to lead the way. The two of us also joined in and really were able to make them a little more comfortable in front of the camera. Even to take that a bit further, being a little more comfortable in front of your clients and being able to do some of your own promotions as well as live broadcasts, anything to do with the camera, in addition to the opportunity to submit for their audition tape for PFCI. So thank you very much for being here. Hopefully you guys saw all of the social posts that were going on and will join us again for the class in the fall. Our upcoming class, next one is Flowers to Wear, which is March 10th through the 11th. It's going through the 12th, sorry, 10th through the 12th. It will have Anthony Swick, AIFD, and also Angelin Tipton, AIFD. Not only are we doing flowers to wear, such as boutonnieres and corsages, but also spending an entire day on jewelry forms that can not only be used for prom, but also for weddings and other occasions. So it's a great new class. We've added in a lot of new products, a lot of projects that you'll be happy to take back to your shops and studios to use. Then right after that is April. Which will be our wedding and special event course with Sandy Schreck and myself. Will be in the special event setup from this past year, but we're actually packing everything up after it's created, moving it to an offsite location and setting up so you get the full experience from planning it to concepting it, filling
to
it,
executing
presenting it,
That's a real deal.
executing it,
Yeah,
setting it up, everything you possibly can.
that's awesome.
We even have some people that have signed up from out of the country to come and join us for that particular class. So it's going to be a good class. Be sure that you log on to floriologyinstitute.com/courses to register for any and all of our courses, as well as the webinars and a lot of free stuff that's on there that you can
yeah, lots of great
read
knowledge
over.
on there. I mean, like, we have a whole team here that blogs, our entire crew blogs, as well as we have a lot of great content from florist peers just like yourself that serve on the BloomNet Knowledge Council that you can find content on there as well. So before we begin, thank you very much for those updates, Jackie. Just a couple of quick housekeeping items. If you would like to ask a question, we're going to keep it rather relaxed today. If you have a question, go ahead and ask us during the broadcast. I'll do my best to monitor the questions control panel, but you'll see on your GoToWebinar control panel a questions bar. Leave your questions in there, and we'll do our best to address them as we proceed with the presentation.
Okay.
So, Jackie, you ready?
Let's go.
All right. So let's ask the question, why exactly are we here post Valentine's Day? I know a lot of florists out there, some of them I know are pretty exhausted still, but it's a business, so we got to think about the business.
Well, I mean, as soon as we're finished with any holiday, and one thing I want everyone to encourage everyone is not to just think of Valentine's as Mother's Day, and a lot of people do look at those two as our major holidays, but really every season, every opportunity, we should treat as a holiday. And this information that we're going to go over today is well known, it's out there, it's available, but we're seeing so many new people come into the industry that may not necessarily have that mentor that can lead them through this, but also some of those of us that have been in for a long time start to neglect to do things like this. And I think it's very important.
Well, just to put in context, I want to let the audience know your experience of being a retail florist. Could you kind of share what you've done throughout your career?
Well, sure. I mean, I got my start in the industry and of course, one flower shop. By the age of 27, had my third flower shop in 3 different states. So 3 distinctively different regions,
Right.
Tennessee, Texas, and South Carolina, very different economies.
Right.
So I really did have a cross training, if you would, with just about everything that could possibly come at you, from trying to convince people that $7.99 was a really good price for a boutonniere to selling boutonnieres for $20, $30, $40 each. So it really depended on where you were, the market you were appealing to, and I took these same principles and applied them to all 3 situations, although they were entirely different. But I also applied it to Mother's Day, to prom season, wedding season, holiday season, Thanksgiving season, because having this information at your fingertips is really where you start for your next season in planning and the process, as you'll see when we go through.
And this is great because these kind of webinars really serve as reminders, even for veterans out there.
Absolutely.
That I mean, I do see our list here, and I do see a few veterans. So if you do have a tip that you'd like to share, go ahead and leave it in the questions bar, because it doesn't have to be questioned. If you want to contribute something to the discussion, we welcome your comments. So we have the why. Let's move forward. All right, what happened? What happened this Valentine's Day? And I think the main things that we're trying to do here is really begin the assessment process and the examination process and the dissection process of the holiday so we can improve. So how are your sales? We need to consider all these variables. So day of the week. This Valentine's Day was on a Thursday. And I know from historical data, that's like the second best day to have a Valentine's Day. I think the first is Wednesday, right?
I believe so, and that's generally because they're in the middle of the week and people don't have other opportunities or other options. But one of the things that I do want to talk about real quickly is a lot of the figures are still being compiled. We don't have a lot of sales information where things up or down. That takes a bit to put together. But on an individual basis, when you're in your shop, you're going to be able to probably within a few days. And really looking at the day is important, because I know that we just ended one of the second best days of the week for a holiday, and we're heading towards one of the worst days for the holiday to be on, with being on a Friday, because people feel like they do have a lot of opportunity for other options to come up. So that's one of the reasons that we really wanted to spend some time on this today.
And like the other thing to consider, I just went through the statistics with a friend of mine, and they own a pretty big shop up in the upper Midwest. And we decided that it's best to compare data, not necessarily to last year's Valentine's Day, which I think last year was Wednesday, right? Which would be good, but we figured that it would be best to compare his stats to the last years that Valentine's happened on a Thursday.
Sure.
So those years were 2008 and 2013. I won't go off and name any of these folks, but one thing that we did see with his business is that there was an overall decline. So 2000, this happened, of course, right before the recession, happened in 2008, and that seemed to be a high point. And then there was a gradual decrease in 2013 and another decrease this year. So although that may not be the best news, like at least we do have some data from a couple of folks and up there, and a lot of it could be the weather, which I know we have down here. I think that's another thing that florists have to consider. It could be weather, or it could be other reasons like local or national impacts. Do you get the sense that customers in your area were reluctant to spend because of maybe the political climate or something that happened locally? I think those are things that you at least write down in notes, because you're going to forget about that next year. You're going to forget that, like something happened that year, or even the weather. We had 14 inches of snow that was on the ground. I'm sure you guys would remember something like that, but I think it's always good to take down those notes.
Well, I think that what we're seeing this year, that there really was distinctively either a really good holiday or very stale and pretty much the same. Maybe some slight decreases, some slight increases, but invariably when you look at the average, it was either very much the same or really good. And what we're seeing is that really depended on what a lot of people did. Having other options, because with today's generation and having several generations that are looking for alternative things other than flowers, and being able to appeal to that, did help drive sales in a new direction for some of those that may have shown a decrease in roses or dozen roses that moved over to plants or mixed arrangements. Gift baskets, experiences across the board were increasing, because a lot of today's generation that's exactly what they're looking for. They want that experience.
Not to get too much into that tangent, but I think it's really important for florists to know that, for the 5 days prior to the holiday, I did several searches, throughout the day. And what I was looking for is, what are people searching for? And again, I feel like I'm just a deliverer of bad news. But when I did searches for just Valentine's Day and associated terms, Olive Garden came up because I know that they had some sort of bread bouquet. Starbucks came up. What to serve for Valentine's Day dinner, and I counted down to where the first time flowers was mentioned, and it was the 33rd search term, and it was for rose bears. So the challenge, I think, for our industry is that you're right. I mean, there are just so many other gift choices, and we have to really consider how people are finding alternatives, and they're doing it online. Like they're doing searches for that. So I think, like one of the challenges, and I had mentioned, like my friend that showed, significant decreases over the last years that Valentine's Day was on a Thursday. But one thing that we did discuss is that flowers are not necessarily the top of mind for the Valentine's Day holiday. And I know that's very shocking for us as an industry to even fathom, because of course flowers should be part of the celebration. But like you said, the preferences are changing, and especially for the this younger generation who are looking for experiences. not necessarily like tokens of affection or gifts that they could share with a loved one. Like another term that came up was Valentine's Day or Palentine's Day. So people are looking for just reasons to hang out, but not necessarily maybe an occasion to give flowers.
Well, one of the things that, and I'm going to play a little twist on your words, not being the bearer of bad news. I think we have to look at that as being the bearer of news that we have to really look for. It is our responsibility in each of our individual businesses to stay on top of what's going on with trends, what our opportunities are, and then how do we work our products and our services into what they're looking for. So what I would encourage everyone to do is to look at what was trending, and that's a great thing that you want to pull some of those figures, make those notes, make sure that they're included in your report for next year to know that these were some of the top searches. So next year, what am I going to offer that can be an add-on to that experience? Who can I join with that can make my product just as valuable and as important as those that are being offered already? So we really have to take it more as a learning process rather than bad news, but just a challenge to us to move forward.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, looking down the rest of the list, I mean, I know weather did play an important part in a lot of places around the country. There were some very cold Valentine's days, which is always a challenge for the Midwest and the North, and being able to deliver and leave things. And then here in the South, we were fairly warm. So you've got good and bad with that. But making those notes are important, because if you have one or the other when you're working towards next year, it will help you to better prepare for that. And that's really what a lot of this is about. And one thing you brought up was with the not just the economic and political situation that's going on, because it's across the board, both sides of the aisle, in and out, upside down, around, and every way you can look at it. And it does have people nervous. What is going to happen? When is it going to happen? How is it going to happen? And should I hold on to every single penny that I possibly can right now?
So just going down the list, things that you need to consider. Did you do any new marketing?
I think that's very important.
Or like any new merchandising this year in your shop, because I know a lot of florists out there, and they're doing the right thing. You guys are mixing it up, but make sure you note that down. What did you do different from last year? Labor challenges. So I know that's always been, unfortunately, a persistent problem over this last several years. Finding people as drivers, finding like designers. Did you have those kind of challenges this year? And we touched upon this one point. Notice any demographic shifts and preferences in customers. So the walk-ins, were they younger? Were they older? The call-ins, the people. I mean, I know that you can't get all this information, but it's good to keep note if you feel that the demographics of your customers have changed. Order channels. Right now, for the last several years, you should be seeing a consistent rise in web orders, just because a lot of florists are reporting that walk-in sales are decreasing, but that should be compensated with people visiting the website. And also, you guys should be tabulating all the phone orders that you get in.
Well, I mean, and I think also it's really important on your merchandising to point out, what did you do, what was different, and make sure that you're keeping those records.
Cool. So did we cover everything on this slide?
I think we have.
All right, perfect. So what's to do? Like, now that you've started gathering all this data on your own, with whom should you speak to gather even more data and more color to the holiday?
I think it's really important to talk to your customers in every way possible, and I would encourage that you do use every way that we have listed here. I always liked being out in the showroom or the sales floor when people were coming in, and a lot of people are reporting that it was a very sort of lackluster holiday up until the last minute. So a lot of people procrastinated this year,
right.
Which is always the case, but
case.
Especially true this year. They waited until the very last minute. Why, how, and having the opportunity to find that out direct from the people that are in your shop is important. Then also I would send out some sort of questionnaire, either social, do a survey,
email,
make some calls. The regular clients, you've got their email address. Why? I heard a lot of people say that they had been advertising and doing email blasts for weeks and had people walk in the day before, like, I didn't know it was Valentine's Day. I'm not quite sure how you can not know. It has been the same day as long as I've known about the holiday, at least the same date every year. So just really seeing people put things out of their mind, and how do we get in front of them to bring them in at that time?
You know, one thing good, maybe a good idea for you guys is like, if you could slice and dice your data this way, but maybe ask the customers that you know didn't buy anything. You know, if you have that email and you notice that they didn't come into the shop this year, ask them, hey, you know what, we were wondering why, you know, you decided to go with another route for Valentine's Day. You know, just to get kind of that, again, more color for perhaps future marketing.
And I think that's great information to have that might help direct you for the following year as well.
Mm-hmm.
Be sure that you're talking to your staff and your vendors. I would encourage either having a meeting with vendors around you, the other businesses that are close by, that are similar. If you belong to
like a chamber,
or if you belong to a floral group that's local or close by that you can call on, have other shops in town. I always liked being friends with those other shops that were in my area, because quite often we would get together and just try to see what was going on, what happened here locally that really drove the sales up or down either way. But I find a lot of times we forget to include our staff. If you want to have a success, you're going to have to bring the staff on board. If there was something that was going wrong, you really need that information from the staff, because you couldn't possibly be in every single place the entire holiday.
It's true, and as the boss or the manager of the store, you're not necessarily talking to every customer, and you have a ton of folks that are touching them. So it'd be good to get their collective experience with the holiday.
Absolutely. And then one of the last things I think that's very important is talk to the other businesses that are also in the same business of the holiday. We have some of them listed here, candies and chocolates. From all the reports I heard, most of those were on an increase. More people bought candies and chocolates. So is it something that you don't have, or did you not have the right ones? And so really reaching out to that business peer to say, can you help me sort of analyze what I did and where I can go? And maybe then next year you're joining with them. Put your flowers in that candy store.
Collaborations, what it's all about.
It helps both. Talking to some of those wine and beverage, because that's another really big situation for this particular holiday. Jewelry stores we didn't put on there, but I think that's another place that you could certainly pair up with to offer some sort of package. And then with the restaurants, were reservations up or down? Did you see groups or individuals? I think all of that's vital information that will really help you be able to put your report together. And then one last thing that was on the page that we flipped over were just some instructions on some great tutorials on Excel, because we do recommend
was that on the page?
It was on that first page.
Okay, sorry guys. We did skip over this, but when we're talking about documentation, we obviously will definitely promote Excel. I mean, that's just a standard business tool. And don't know Excel? Here are two links that you could use to a couple of great YouTube tutorials by the same person that covers the basics and the intermediate use of Excel.
And it doesn't have to be a long, lengthy report. It can be fairly simple, but the main thing is do a report. I can't tell you how important that is, because it's a great place to start for your coming year, as long as you've got that information at your fingertips.
So I know that's quite a difficult thing to copy down, so we promise to attach the slides with a follow-up email, so watch out for that email.
This is just a sample form that we thought we would load in there. Maybe a little challenging to read, because we really did try to squeeze a lot of information on a small page. But heading up with what the particular holiday is, looking at sales, like you said, either from year to year, month to month, or day to day, like if we're looking at Thursday and then going back to 2013, 2008, which I think really, having a degree in accounting, I analyzed it from every possible direction I could to see, stay on top of where I was going and where I wanted to go. But keeping things simple will help you really gather the information together. We've listed some of the things that might need to be on the report that you're going to put together, but having a place to start and make a generic form that you really can adapt to every holiday, so that you're not always having to curriculum. Have that same form that you can drop the figures in and will allow you to really put everything together and really keep it in one place, which gives you your jumping off point.
That's a really great point, Jackie, because I know we're focusing on the post-holiday assessment here, but the same methodology could be really applied, and like what you said, to any holiday. And I think consistency could really help you in this case because you have a consistent, measurable set of parameters that every holiday, be it Mother's Day, Valentine's would be the biggest in the flower industry, but why not apply the same methodology to Christmas or Thanksgiving or Easter, some other holidays out there and see, because a lot of people, I think, quite frankly, they may have given up on a lot of these holidays because they're no longer like floral holidays. But could you turn that around? Why are they not floral holidays?
Exactly.
Is there an opportunity just by doing some analysis and some tweaking of your own processes and business to make those floral holidays again?
Well, maybe even pulling out some of that information from those holidays that are considered no longer to be a floral holiday and really looking at it and analyzing it, like you said, will allow you to be more than your competitors down the street, the big boxes around. Yep. Make yourself stand out by going back to the basis and starting over and looking at why, how, and what can I do about it.
Well, getting back to that, I mean, your competition's doing this.
Absolutely.
Those big box stores are doing this.
Every direction they possibly can.
Yeah, so it's just up to us to stay competitive.
Some of the information that's going to be important for you to include on that, of course, is going to be your sales data. What was your sales for this year? And I think a lot of that you have to also remember, how do I want to calculate it? Because the day does change. Am I going to start it from the Sunday prior to? Is it for a full week, no matter what the day is, from the day before? Or how did you merchandise or market it so that you want to include that? I think it's important to really look at that several ways and see what works best for you in collecting, gathering, and compiling that information.
Like one thing that we did talk about in the florist groups that I mingle is that there was a great tip from one of the florists that they were assigning a volume of sales for the days prior to the holiday, because the discussion was, the holiday's breaking later and later and later. It seems like every year. But then again, does anyone really have data on that? This person did, because they did see that, the 13th and the 14th represented 90%, I'm just making a number up, but 90% of my sales. And then I see that only 3% happened on Wednesday, 2% happened on Tuesday, and so on. So that could be a great way to prep for the holiday.
Well, I think it's really what works best for you and the way you're going to compile the information. But consistency would be important. If you're going to set it up that way, then consistently do it that way for each of the holidays that you're utilizing this form for, or that you're compiling the information together for.
So products, fresh and hard goods, of course. But this is interesting. A lot of folks end up using some leftovers from a previous holiday and crossovers. So you got to include all of that as the total cost, because I think a lot of people don't necessarily do that.
Well, I think it's important, especially in today's market, whenever I'm looking for a product that I'm going to bring in either to the studio or to the store, I'm going to look for something that does have crossover appeal. If I don't sell it for Valentine's Day, can I hold on to it and utilize it for birthdays or anniversary? Can I sell it as a special during the summer? If it's something that I purchased specifically for Christmas, but it's red and it doesn't denote the specific winter holiday, is it something that I can carry back around? Because I think that's incredibly important. We don't have as large a budgets as we used to, and really being thoughtful in the way you make those purchases will allow you to utilize that product from one to the other, but then keeping up with that is important. If you bought it for one holiday or one merchandising situation, and you're utilizing for the other, I think it's important to denote, was it 25% of the purchase? Was it 35% of the purchase? Did I change the pricing at all? Make sure that you're keeping very good, accurate records so that you're comparing apples to apples and not apples to oranges.
So vendors is usually a consistent thing, with florists, but over year
Absolutely.
by variety and the quality that they deliver to you. And I think those are great notes to take.
Some farms may have a rough year, or maybe flooded, or may have had a revolt in their area. We've seen them all during the course of my time in the industry. So making sure that, again, that you're keeping those notes. Which vendors did you utilize? Which ones had the best quality product? Which ones were those rock stars that you used to? We saw a lot of the information like this on Facebook from other florists that were posting. So it wasn't just us making some of these things up. A lot of this research that we also did through other sources, but making sure that you keep a record of all that, because you might want to reach back out to them the following year, or if they didn't do so good a job, look for someone to replace them when you get to that point.
Or just even address them.
Absolutely.
Like address these issues with the vendor.
And I think that's important. Remember, that's a relationship like anything else. Your relationship with your business partner, which might be a wire service, it might be a service provider, your relationship with your vendors, it is a relationship. It's something that you have to manage, control. Then you also have to feed, fuel, and keep control and keep up with. It's one of those things that doesn't just happen naturally, but it's one of those things that you do want to build over the course of the years to make sure that you're using trustworthy vendors that you don't have to go back and change constantly.
So let's talk about labor. What kind of notes should folks be jotting down for labor and data?
Everything possible, because labor is one of our largest expenses in most of our businesses.
Absolutely.
As well as one of the most challenging sometimes. But, who did you utilize for drivers? And there's all sorts of ideas. I used one of the clubs from, or one of the groups from the gym, the ladies, or firefighters in some areas to make really great delivery people because they know the area. Whatever worked as far as when it came to labor, make good notes on your drivers. Did they do well? Who was it? How did they work? Where did I find them? How do I get back to them? What's the contact information? Designers, if you're moving into an area where you're going to provide more services, then maybe you do flowers, or you're going to provide additional services with your floral products. Maybe one of the things you want to do is go in and do a setup for a Valentine's Day. Let me deliver flowers and candies and set up that dinner for two privately in your home. Think outside the box, but that may require some additional staff to accomplish this. And then did you have adequate sales staff that could answer the phone and wait on people as they came in? All very good notes, very good points to consider when it comes to labor.
So we're about 25 minutes into the webinar, and so far I haven't seen any questions, but like I mentioned at the beginning, as we go through this webinar, if you have any input, anything to add, and questions, certainly ask them through the go to webinar control panel in the questions box.
One of the, I don't want to skip over this one, one that we've got on here, photos of specials with recipes. With the abilities, and all you young people are going to like this out there, because now everything's digital, and you can have a folder. I know they laugh at my desktop because everything's just right there where I can find it, rather than stacking it or putting it in a file. But you can create a file digitally that has all this information. The photos, the recipes, all of these notes can be categorized within that, which makes it very easy to pull out. But you can also create a folder that you keep if you want to get out those stones and tablets and start to chisel away and make some of those notes. It's a great place to start. Having one or the other is important. But with digital, you can create an enormous amount of files and keep them separate and categorized so that it's very easy to come and go. So not doing a post-holiday report for everything you do can't be because you don't have the room or time to write it down. Moving things back and forth from files are very easy, even for me.
Like photos are a very powerful tool. I mean, just getting back to the whole vendor thing. If there was something that you didn't like from the vendor, I'm sure you guys are taking photos of the product.
Well, you have to anyway for your records.
That's right. So it's a great tool. Definitely utilize your smartphone.
Drop it in that file that's right there, kept digitally, and you go back to it when you get ready to start the planning for the next holiday.
Oops. Okay, just we had mentioned how digital web is such a growing part, or it should be a growing part of your business. So, a lot of this, again, may be basic to a lot of the veterans out there, but it's always worth a reminder. Google Analytics is your best friend. And that data is absolute. you could trust that, and trust that if you have data year over year, it's all accurate. So really, as we said, this year it was Thursday. If you happen to have data back from 2013, it'd be a good thing to compare this year's data to, in addition to comparing it to last year's data. But one thing that you should know, you should see consistent growth year over year of at least 10% on your web orders and web sales. That's really been the industry standard for the past 5, 6, 7 years. The other thing that you want to consider is, like anything, what we just talked about, did you do anything different this year? I know a lot of folks don't necessarily do Google AdWords, but if you did Google AdWords, that obviously makes an impact on those web sales. So check out like where these visits were from. Were they from social? Were they from organic? Were they from AdWords? You have all that information in Google Analytics. So like as we mentioned, percentage of web versus overall revenue. Is it growing in your business? Is it decreasing your business? These are things that you really need to pay attention to. The next thing that you want to do, I know a lot of florists out there consistently do social media to promote their business prior to the holiday. Check out those posts. Did they get any engagement? Again, you could use Google Analytics to check out to see if your social media made a difference. Again, check out those referrals. If you did more social media than you did last year, then that percentage of traffic to your website should have increased from social media, especially if you have done the very best practice of embedding links in your social media posts to, like, say, your Valentine's Day section or your roses section or romance section. And like what we said, with search, you have the opportunity to advertise with Google AdWords. Did you do the same thing with Facebook? Did you run Facebook ads to drive more traffic to the website? So those are all things that you can consider. And one thing great about digital marketing, it's all measurable. It's all black and white because the stats are there.
Well, I think that's why you want to make sure that you utilize what you're getting from the analytics. When you posted, how you posted, what you posted, because you're going to have all the information coming right back, and then make sure that those are some of the notes that you're adding in there too.
Yeah, absolutely. And just something to add with social media, you could zero it down to what social media brought you the most business. Was it Instagram? Was it Facebook? Was it Pinterest? Was it Twitter? All that is in analytics. Just look in the acquisition.
I think
section.
we might have a question.
Okay, great.
That third one right there.
All right. The question is, I have seen an increase on mixed arrangements and things people can't find anyplace else, like tropicals. Really interesting point, because one place where we draw data from is the American Floral Endowment Consumer Tracking Study, and there seems to be a distinctive divide that it's older consumers that tend to buy mixed arrangements, and the younger consumers tend to buy just red roses. And speculation on this side, but there's been a lot of opinion about this, where a lot of the old consumers actually know what is going in those mixed arrangements, and the reason why a lot of the younger folks are buying red roses is because they don't know of any other flower.
Well, and I think that's the appeal of the tropical flowers, that and we are seeing an increase in that, because it's something different, it's something unusual, and we are seeing tastes that are distinctively different than their parents and grandparents with just about everyone. So it's sort of that last place that they feel like they're getting value for their money because it is tropical. It may actually last longer. Some orchids will have a longer shelf life than some of the other floral product will. So I think there's a twofold reason that a lot of today's generation are going in that direction.
Well, excellent input. Thank you very much for submitting that, Andy. Oops. All right. So okay, go ahead. So we have all this data. How do I use it?
I really think that looking at the numbers, this is where you come to the analysis part, and then what to do afterwards. Looking at your increases or decreases and what those causes were, I think are probably one of the most important things that you want to include in this report. Really using those analytics and looking at how, where, why, what, with almost everything that you're going to do, because otherwise you're not going to be able to make a really good projection the next holiday. If you're seeing a trend going one direction for Valentine's Day, chances are that trend may also go that direction for Mother's Day. That's the next large holiday around the corner.
That's a great.
But we do have prom that's in there as well. So don't negate that a change for one holiday can influence the holidays that are immediately following.
Yeah, again, even though we're talking about Valentine's Day, a lot of these principles you could potentially, and we would recommend that you apply to the upcoming holidays.
Absolutely.
Coming up.
Because if we make a little change now for a secondary season, such as prom, or wedding season probably is not a secondary season, but if we make that change there, it gives us another place that we're gathering that information, we're looking at the results, and it helps us to be able to forecast going forward, which is the next thing that we want to talk about, forecasting changes as they come. It's one of the hardest things that we do in business, I believe, trying to second guess the consumer. But if we utilize a lot of the information that's provided for us with Google Analytics, as well as talk to your accountant, talk to your friends, talk to your vendors, what are they doing? Make sure you are gathering that information and then asking the right questions so that you can look at how am I going to forecast for this next holiday as well as the next holiday season for the following year. Having that information lined up and ready will be able to sort of kick you off for the next thing as far as planning goals.
I did mention something at the beginning of how I was tracking trends, search trends. You guys can do the same thing. This tool is not exclusive to geeks like me, but if you Google Trends, it'll take you to a website. I think it's called Google Trends, where you could type in, say, I would say type in Mother's Day, and then you'll start to see all these other keywords that people are typing in search to look for gifts. So getting back to the Valentine's Day holiday, what were the top keywords? Gifts for her, gifts for wife, gifts for a man. Those are absolutely great keywords that you guys need to include in your website, in your search ads, everywhere, because that's what people are searching. So, we talked about the issue of, I think flowers are no longer top of mind for most consumers. So we have to make it top of mind. So we need to really re-inject ourselves into the search conversation by using those terms that we wouldn't think we would have to use, because I think we just have to get it out of our minds that people flowers are a default gift, and compete using the same strategies that a lot of other businesses are using. Because like they're using gifts for her, gifts for him, gifts for whoever in their searches.
Really to see what all their options are. So we want to be one of those options.
Exactly.
But we need to be very active. And I use a term all the time. I prefer being proactive than reactive. I'd rather be proactive in getting to be part of those selections rather than having to react like this afterwards and say, why was I not? As long as you can stay in front of it rather than staying behind it, then it's going to help at least keep your sales up rather than falling. And one of the things that we talked about is not just making a plan, but then working that plan. You've really got to plan out what you want to do, how you want to change, and if you want to increase your sales by 3%, then you need to know where your sales are now. So that's why it's important to gather and compile this information. You cannot increase or change or research and analyze why if you do not know where you are. So all of this is very good information that will allow you to go forward. Do I need to shift in my generational focus? Is my clientele changing within the area that I am? Because quite honestly, it is for everyone. So if you're not seeing part of that, maybe that's because you're not appealing to that generation. So do I need to really think about this and move forward to have cross sales in every generation? And I would recommend that that's a yes to all of the above. And then do I need to change my marketing and my merchandising? I hear constantly as I travel around the country for various things, my clients love what I do. I'm going to continue to do that. I don't need to change. Wrong. We all, unfortunately, are having to change because the industry is changing. And you want to grow with that change. You want to develop with that change. You want to make sure that you are moving forward in a predetermined, proactive way that's going to keep your business strong.
Do you want to talk about
And then,
more of this? Okay. And then, yeah, because we do have a couple questions. I just wanted to be sure we had time for the questions that have been asked. So, yeah, let's just go ahead and hang tight. We're just going to go ahead and finish planning goals, and then.
Well, just one more thing.
Yeah,
create a calendar.
Create a calendar.
That should be fairly simple there. Create a calendar is when you're going to start this, how you're going to do it, and really what you're doing as you go through.
All right. So Valentine's Day 2020.
That kind of goes with the next.
Gotcha.
Next time.
All right.
Part of the pre-planning. Where do I start?
Yeah. Here we go. Here we go.
Because we want to look at the next holiday. Specifically, we are talking about Valentine's, but as we've encouraged you to do, think of every holiday, not just Valentine's. Create to-do list. I know that sounds very old school, but you can still do it digitally. You can put it on your computer so that the first thing you open up in the morning is a to-do list. And one of the reasons that I really encourage people to do this is not just so that you have those items down there that you need to do, but that at the end of the day, when you cross some of those off, you can really feel a accomplishment. Look at what I was able to do. And go back to that on a daily, weekly, or monthly, quarterly basis. If you can at least start quarterly and see how that goes for you before you move it over. But I do find that to-do lists are a great way for you to get something out of your mind, remember it when you need to go back and accomplish it, and then look at those and see what you were able to accomplish during the day, during the week, during the quarter.
And you should really not keep these things to yourself. You should really include your staff.
Oh, you have to include your staff, because the success of your store is going to be all those people that take part in your store, that work for you, work around you, work with you. So make sure that you're including them on, this is what my plan is. I really encourage you to have meetings. We have meetings to plan meetings here. So I think that it's important that you do plan properly. Make sure that you include your staff and those that work for you, such as your accountant, your attorney, your social media person. All of those are brought into this is what your plan are, because they're going to help you to be able to accomplish the next one, which is reworking those budgets. Where maybe I need to spend more on Google AdWords. Maybe I need to buy different product. Maybe I need to invest in some services that I haven't offered before. Whatever the case may be, rework the budgets for a merchandising plan or for a holiday, whatever the case may be. Just make sure that you are actively looking at them and staying within that framework, because it's important.
Yeah, really. I mean, assessing the holiday, and you have access to all this information. It really represents like opportunities. So when we're talking about reworking budgets, what we're really talking about is like, now that you have all this data in front of you, where are those opportunities, and where should you redirect or direct more resources, either some money in advertising or people. So that's what it's really about.
Well, and this is one of those things that as artists, we do not like to do.
Sure.
We do not want to do all this paperwork, gather up all these figures. But since it's digital, it's a lot easier to compile and put it together. And once you do get it started, it's a lot easier to be consistent with putting the information in there than not starting at all. You have to at least start, and then plan your marketing and merchandising so that you know when you go to market, what am I looking for, what am I purchasing, how am I going to bring it in to the store, when should that hit, when should it go to the floor, what do I need to have ready for my social marketing and moving forward with that. All of this I know is things that most people know. Again, we're just trying to remind you of it and put it out there that it's important to measure the success of your holiday by looking at everything that surrounds the holiday.
So we do have a couple questions in the queue. We have one here. How do you respond to negative reviews? Always respond to any and every review, and respond authentically. Try to be very personal in your response. Even say, hey, this is Renato from Renato's Flower Shop. um, sorry that you had such a bad experience, but we want to make it up to you. Here is my number. Ask for me like specifically, and we'll do something to make it right.
And I think that's the important part. Try to take it offline, either personally on one-on-one on phone call or off the social network, so that you can respond comfortably and make that person feel comfortable.
Okay.
That you want. It's like diffusing the situation, but it's more than that. You want to give that person the personal customer service, because that's really what sets you apart from everyone else. How you handle that is going to determine whether you're building a future sale or you're ending an opportunity for sales.
And then, just a little bit to add to that, what we mentioned, be authentic. So try not to make every response seem canned. So although Renato may be doing all the responses to all the negative reviews, Renato could certainly write or twist a sentence differently to make it seem like he's actually a real human versus like a bot. And I know there's a lot going on out there where a lot of companies are using these bots where they're pumping out these sort of canned responses, and people pick on that, pick up on that really quickly. So again, the more personal it is, the better. And like, remember, these reviews stay up there, the responses stay up there too. So what we mentioned, respond to everything, because future customers are going to be reading those reviews, and they understand that every business gets a negative review. But what they're looking for is how first, how bad that negative review is, but B, how well you respond to it.
Sure.
And even if you're coming to the party late and you see that some reviews are a couple of weeks old, a month old, 2 months old, whatever, it's still good to respond to everything. And again, be authentic. Hey, sorry, I'm late to respond to this particular review, but please reach out to us and we'll resolve it for you. Alrighty. The next question. Are there marketing tools with BloomNet Commerce to help us new shops be prepared for major holidays as far as containers, etc.? This is exciting, by the way. Yes, there are tools, not necessarily through, there's one tool that I would recommend to you since you are in BloomNet Commerce, and I know we're talking shop for those that are not using BloomNet Commerce, which is our website system. But reach out to us, connect with our marketing department, and they'll send out emailers that we pre-format and we send out to your customers that drive traffic directly back to your website. So that's one tool. But the other tool is what Jackie and Leslie are involved with. They provide, I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank. Trend reports for the upcoming holidays. There's nothing more powerful than having a conversation with a consumer where you're giving them advice of how you could inject flowers into their occasions, into their home decor. And I know Jackie and Leslie do a fabulous job in getting those terms and making them vernacular in which you could communicate to the customer, and having that customer trust you as the purveyor of the latest trends.
Well, and that's one of the reasons we do the trend report, is so that you can look at, and it's like anything else, you take the overall trend report and then you're going to have to pare it down to what works regionally for me, depending on where you are. But it's a place for you to start to see what the trends are in the market. What can I pull into my area? What's going to make the most sense for me to be able to have these particular containers to go from not just this holiday, but go year round. Reach out to us either at BloomNet customer service or napcoimports.com. We'll also show you a pathway to the trend report as well.
So how do we get the BloomNet 2019 book? Clorinda, email me, and I'll have someone send that to you.
And both of our emails are at the end of this webinar, so that you can reach out to either one of us for any of these questions. If you want to go into a little bit more depth, we're here for you. We want to help in any way that we possibly can.
So here's a tip from Andy regarding, I guess, negative reviews. My suggestion is to ask them, what can I do to make you happy? They may say, give me credit, give me my money back, etc. And she follows up with, just do it. It will pay off on the end. put yourself into their shoes. That's great, because I think once customers realize that you're empathizing with them, again, it's all about authenticity and being sincere, and that's a great way of doing it.
But I would also, don't forget that you want to, if you're able to satisfy that customer, ask them to go back and to revise the review. Ask them to make changes so that you can see, the others can see. I reached out to Andy on social media, told them what the problem was. She was willing to take care of it, and now I'm a happy customer. Or just ask them to amend it, because once it's up there, and you want to make sure that people see, again, how you deal with it, because a lot of times that's even more important.
So I know we've totally blown past our time, but I think we're having a good time because no one has left. So one last question. How do I use podcast, blog, YouTube channel to sell more? That's a great question. And I touched upon this a little bit with the trends, and being authentic, and being, the representative in your floral community that is the flower guru for that customer, for your set of customers. Get to know these trends. Share your recommendations for, so let's talk about the upcoming holiday for Mother's Day. Do a video and talk about your top 5 gifts for your wife who's a mom, your sister who's a mom. Really show off your talent and your products through video. You could write about this via blog. I mean, if you ask your web developer, can I blog on my website? If you can, those are great tools to build traffic to your website. And for podcasting, that's a little bit older, but actually, it would be the same kind of information, but just in audio form. But I would focus for sure on YouTube and that blog.
And don't forget, Instagram and Twitter is out there too. You want to make sure that you're including all of them. And they all have a lot of very specific ways that you can do that. Be sure that you look at all of them. But then also there's a lot of crossover from one to the other. And being able to post in one section and then have it fall over to 1 or 2 others might just be able to help you increase those sales and get out to more people.
Yeah, just a note on social media. And this is kind of ironic, what I'm about to say. In order to sell more, you educate more. So, in terms of social media, especially with the younger consumers out there, they don't want to be sold directly to with social media. You need to entertain them. You need to educate them. So consider those kind of posts. I mean, a great post would be care and handling.
What do red roses mean? How do I care for them? Where do I get them? What do I want to do to them? How do I present them? All of these are ways that you can write very quick blogs that are all going to lead back to that red roses are an option. Again, remember, one of the things that we've talked about consistently is being part of the options rather than that 33rd choice. You want to be in that top 10. The only way to get there is to be proactive and educate.
Get back into the conversation.
Absolutely.
That's wonderful. So we're totally overextended our time. So we appreciate you sticking around with us, and we will have a recording of this webinar in case you missed any of it in a couple weeks. We appreciate your time. Thank you very much, and we look forward to seeing you on future webinars. One thing new that Floriology is doing is that we are publishing all sorts of videos that we're doing on Facebook, here, wherever, on our new YouTube channel. So go to youtube.com/Floriology Institute, and please subscribe to our channel, and of course, like us on Facebook and Instagram and all the other places.
Thanks so much for joining us, everyone. We appreciate it, and we'll see you again next time.